Hi everyone, it's Miss Mitchell here again. I don't know how many of you were watching the first live stream, but it was interrupted for some reason. So we're going to try again. Um, I did remove the other video just because it wasn't the full thing. So if you're here watching, awesome, or if you're watching at a later time, then it doesn't really affect you, so that's great. So I am going to start back at the beginning. Just for those of you who are watching at a later time and missed the first part of the live stream. So I'm here with Cannoli. She was up here eating just a second ago, but now she's gone. There she is. I gave her some carrots. Come back up. Yeah. Come on. I don't know. Anyways, maybe she'll come, maybe she won't. She's also noisy sometimes too because she likes to chew on the side of the cage. She's a rascal. Alrighty. So, anyways, we're back here with Encyclopedia Brown, and we had the case of the happy nephew. So, the case of the happy nephew. Let's keep this title in mind as we're trying to figure out this case. Figure out how Encyclopedia Brown was able to figure it out. Okay. The Browns were having leftover meatloaf for dinner one night when the telephone rang. It must be important, said Mrs. Brown worriedly. Otherwise, why would anyone call during the dinner hour? She hurried to the telephone. In a moment, she called to her husband. It's Officer Carlston, dear. Chief Brown went to the telephone and spoke with his officer for several minutes. When he returned to the dining room, he wore a frown and his gun. The Princess Bake Shop on Vine Street was robbed less than an hour ago, he said. I'll have to go out. Any clues, Dad? Said Encyclopedia. We have an eyewitness, answered his father. A man passing the bakery says he saw John Abbott running out the door. Hasn't John Abbott been in prison? Asked Mrs. Brown. 5 years ago, said Chief Brown, but he's gone straight ever since he came out. The eyewitness only got a quick look at the robber. He might be mistaken. Chief Brown shrugged. Still, I suppose I'll have to stop by and question John. I hope he has a good alibi. Can I go with you? Cried Encyclopedia. May I go with you? His mother said. And drink your milk first. May I go with you, Dad? Encyclopedia asked. He gulped his milk. Come along if you like, said his father, but you will have to stay in the car and be quiet. I'll be as quiet as a cat at a dog show, promised Encyclopedia. He sat quietly beside his father in the police car on the drive to the house where John Abbott lived with his sister and her family. Staying in the car won't be so bad, Encyclopedia decided. The car will be a lot closer to this case than our dining room. On the west side of town, his father stopped the car. Here's the house. Encyclopedia saw a small white house in need of paint. An old yellow car stood in the shaded driveway. There's John, said Chief Brown. A tall young man had come out of the house. He was carrying a barefoot boy about a year and a half old. Chief Brown reminded Encyclopedia to sit quietly in the car. Then he got out and walked toward John Abbott. Put the child down, John, Chief Brown called, and keep your hands where I can see them. John Abbott started to lower the barefoot baby onto the sharp stones of the gravel driveway. Then he changed his mind and put the child on the front fender of the yellow car and raised his hands. What's this all about, Chief? He asked. Robbery, replied Chief Brown. You were seen running out of the Princess Bake Shop on Vine Street an hour ago. The door was broken and all the money in the cash register was stolen. John Abbott laughed. Ha ha! I wasn't near Vine Street an hour ago. Why, all day. Look out! Shouted Chief Brown. He leaped for the baby. The child had climbed onto the hood of the yellow car. He smiled and gurgled happily. Suddenly he stood up and walked close to the edge of the hood. Chief Brown caught him just as he started to fall off the car. Thanks, Chief, said John Abbott. He's my nephew. I'll hold him. No, I'll hold him, said Chief Brown. Just tell me where you were today. So there's Chief Brown catching the nephew of John Abbott as he's fallen off of the car. It says, Look out, shouted Chief Brown. Anyone who says he saw me coming out of the Princess Bake Shop an hour ago is either crazy or a liar, said John Abbott. Can you prove you were somewhere else? I was miles away, said John Abbott. Since 8 o'clock this morning, I've been driving this car. I drove down from Sundale Shores. I got here just 5 minutes before you came. Chief Brown looked at his watch. You drove 600 miles in less than 12 hours? He said. Did you stop around 6 o'clock and talk to anyone? Somebody we can check your story with? No, not around 6 o'clock, said John Abbott. I stopped for gas and a hamburger about 4:30. Then I drove straight through. I didn't break any speed limit, and I had nothing to do with any bake shop robbery. I'd like to think you are telling the truth, said Chief Brown. I am. I've gone straight, believe me, said John Abbott. All right, said Chief Brown. I'll have to question the eyewitness who says he saw you. Maybe it will turn out that he isn't so sure. Chief Brown put the baby in John Abbott's arms and walked back to the police car. I heard and saw everything, Dad, said Encyclopedia. How come you didn't arrest him? Because he says he was driving from Sundale Shores when the robbery took place, answered Chief Brown. He got here just 5 minutes before we came. I can't prove that he is lying, at least not yet. He slipped into the seat beside Encyclopedia and started the car. Listen to me, Leroy, he said. Our eyewitness may have made a mistake. He may have seen a man who only looked like John Abbott. A good police officer doesn't put people in jail without more proof than that. I believe the witness, said Encyclopedia. John Abbott didn't just drive in from Sundale Shores in that old yellow car. I can prove that he didn't. So, what was the proof? How did Encyclopedia know that John Abbott's alibi wasn't true, that he didn't just drive in from Sundale Shores? I don't know. We have to think about it. Why is his alibi not right? We're going to turn. So think about it. And also think about, why is this part called the case of the happy nephew? What does the nephew have to do with that? I think that might help too. All right, I'll give you a few seconds here to think about it. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Did you figure it out, Cannoli? I think she did. She's pretty smart. She's just not telling us, you know. Did you figure it out at home? Did you share it with a friend, a parent, a sibling, anybody? A bunny, a kitty, a dog, a snake? I don't know what you got at home. All right, let's see if you figured it out. Here's our solution to the case of the happy nephew. John Abbott said he had reached his sister's house only 5 minutes before Chief Brown arrived. If John had just driven in from Sundale Shores, the motor and hood of his car would still have been burning hot. Remember, he said he had made only one stop for hamburger and gas during the 12-hour trip. If that was true, his little nephew, who was barefoot, would have cried out in pain when he stood on the hot hood of the car. Instead, the baby smiled and gurgled happily. Therefore, the hood was not hot. A cool hood meant that the car had not just been parked for a 12-hour drive, as John Abbott had said. Ooh, so were you able to piece it together that the nephew, when he stepped on the car, he didn't cry, so the car was not hot. Instead, the baby was happy, meaning it was probably cool. He had been there longer than just a few minutes. Ooh, that was a tricky one. Were you able to figure it out? I hope so. All right, tomorrow we will be back with the case of the diamond necklace. Ooh. We'll have to see what that one's going to be about tomorrow. I hope you enjoyed today's. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Say bye, Cannoli. Bye. See you guys.